Hello, I'm Jim Butler. I am soon to be a former West Virginia House of Delegates member. I have been in the West Virginia House of Delegates for 8 years, and I'm going to show you how to use the West Virginia Legislative website. There's a lot of information on this website, so I'm just going to show you the basics, and I'm sure you'll figure out how to find all the specifics as you get into it. So here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is show you actually how to find the website. So on whatever search engine you want to use, type in West Virginia Legislature. It already came up here for me. So click enter. And you see here, West Virginia Legislature. The .gov address kind of shows you it's an official page. So you click on that. And that's going to take you to the home page. The first thing I'm going to take you to is the West Virginia Constitution, because that's the basis for all that we do in the state of West Virginia as far as the legislature is concerned. So you go to state law. You have different choices there. Click Constitution. And this page comes up, shows you the West Virginia Constitution. So you can click on any of these to go to the specific article, or you can just scroll up to see what is in the Constitution. The Constitution is going to show you some basic things like what your representatives are supposed to do, whether it be your House of Delegates members or your state senators, also your constitutional officers. And the Constitution governs, or is the guiding document for all the law in the state. A few things I want to just touch on is Article 1, Section 3. The continuity of the Constitution is basically saying the Constitution is in effect at all times, including in times of war. I'd also like to go to Article 5, Section 1, which is the division of powers, which basically says that the legislative branch makes the laws, the executive branch carries out the laws. What it's saying is that there's a specific division of power in the state, so you know who is responsible for what. You can also find within the Constitution what happens when the legislature passes laws and then the governor has the duty to either sign them, let them become law, or veto them, and what happens in cases where a law is vetoed and all of that. So your Constitution is your rule book. I want to show you how to find out what district you live in if you don't happen to know. There are 34 senators in the state, 17 different districts. So from the home page, we're going to click Senate. And you have lots of options here. We're going to click District Maps. This shows you a map of the state of West Virginia. You have corresponding numbers. It tells you what counties are within each senatorial district, and you can look at where you live and figure out what district you live in. If you scroll on down, you can see a more detailed maps of each district, and it also shows you who your representatives for that district are. Like in this case, Senate District 3, Senators Boley and Azinger. And you can click on these and it'll take you to those specific senators in this case. We're going to go back to the home page. Same thing is true with the House. If you want to see what House district you're in, click House. Come down here to District Maps. And you have to scroll a little bit to find the actual state. So this is your district map. And again, you can look at where you live. You look at your county and what part of the county you live in, and you can see what district you're in, which corresponds with the numbers. And then as you scroll on up or down, you can see the district numbers and who your delegates are. Again, your senators or your delegates are the ones who are actually, according to the Constitution, making laws. Once you find out what district you live in, how do you find out who represents you? And there are several different ways to do this, but one way is if you want to find out who your senator is, and you know that you're in District 3, say from our previous example, you click Senators, and it'll take you to this list, and your members are listed in alphabetical order. So, but you're going to be looking at your district. So in the previous example, we were looking at District 3, and Mike Azinger is one of the senators who represents District 3. There are 2 senators for every district in the West Virginia State Senate. The other senator for District 3 is Senator Boley. So again, what you're looking for is members, the district number, and then you can find your senators that way. Also on this page is the email address, the official legislative email address for your legislators, and their office phone numbers. One thing that's important to remember about the West Virginia State Legislature is that we are a part-time legislature, which means we're only officially in session for 2 months out of the year, 60 days. Usually that's from the middle of January until the middle of March. This year that's going to be a little bit different. But anyway, the important thing about that is to know we are not in our offices for 10 months out of the year. So if you need to get a hold of your representative, whether it be your senator or delegate, you may need to get their home phone numbers. And there's a way to get that also if they don't make it readily available. So we'll find House members also. You click House, click Delegates, and you've learned how to find out what delegate district you're in. You have to find the number that corresponds with that delegate. Say, for instance, we'll just say me, for instance, Jim Butler. I represent House District 14. So you can see my official email address and my office phone number. Now, you can click on the name from that screen, and that'll tell you what committee assignments I have, what my interim committees are. That's the committees you're on sort of during the off season. And here's a place where you can find the mailing address, the official office phone number, but also information about my home address and my home phone number. So these are the numbers you would call me during the off season. Now I'm going to show you how to find specific legislation, meaning bills. So from the home page that we've been starting from previously, you go over to Bill Status. Click that. Then you have a couple different options. Bill Tracking is something different. Click Bill Status. And that brings you to this page. And there are several different ways you can track bills or follow the status of bills. One thing that's very important here is the bill type, the year, and the session. During the session, remember I said we have a regular session, which is 60 days of the year, which is typically from the middle of January to the middle of March. Sometimes, if we have issues that we can't finalize in those 60 days, we go into what we call special sessions, or if there's some kind of an emergency where the governor calls us back in, or else we call ourselves in, we can go into a special session. So that's what those are. So you need to know what year and what session you're searching for things in. So just to keep it simple to start off with, we're going to stick with the year that came up here, which is 2020, which the 2020 session started last January. in the regular session, so we're going to leave that just as it is. Now, if you happen to know the bill number, this is pretty easy, or typically is. So I'm going to pick a bill that I know the number to. This is a bill that I sponsored, the Campus Self-Defense Act. And that bill number is 2519. 2519. You type that in and hit submit. And then you scroll up a little bit, and that takes you to House Bill 2519. Shows that I was the lead sponsor. These are the other sponsors, people that signed on to it with me. And the rest of this is kind of technical stuff. But if you want to read the bill, you find bill text. And you can click either HTML or PDF. Click one of those and that'll take you to the bill itself. So you can read the introduced version of the bill. I say introduced version because they do get changed as they go along. They get amendments and so forth. So that's how you find a specific bill if you know the number. Now, what if you don't know the number? Now, we just looked up Campus Self-Defense Act, right? You see that's the name of it. And we had the bill number in our first case here. But let's say we don't know the bill number, but we want to just look it up based on the contents of the bill. Again, this is very important. You have to know the bill type, the year, and the session you were in. So I'm going to type in here, Campus Self-Defense Act. And click search. Now, for some reason, and I tried this earlier, the website is not allowing you to search things, or you're not getting results when you search in the words if you don't have the bill number. And I've tried this for several bills as I tried to do this little tutorial, and this is not working. But that's the way you would typically do it. You would type in the bill name or something that the bill contains, click search, and it should come up with some numbers, the bill number, so you could click on those to read them, just to verify that that's what you were looking for. But for some reason, that's not working today. And that is one of the problems with this legislative site, is sometimes all the functions don't work. And sometimes it even seems like things are purposely made difficult to find, or they're titled in ways that are a little bit misleading, I might say. So we're going to go back here to the regular page. So for now, I can't show you how to search based on the title or the content. But if you know the bill number, then it's pretty easy to search, and we'll find another one here. So since we've established that the bill search by text is not working, I'll show you another way to look at bills to maybe find the number if you don't already know it. There's another way there's several different ways to search for bills, but you can search by sponsor. So I'm going to stick with me this time. So let's look at all the bills that I sponsored. So you click, see here it says search bills by. You can search all the bills, which is going to be about 2,000 of them. You can click subject matter. You can click sponsor. So let's click sponsor in this case. So you see down here in the bottom left, it says, okay, I'm searching for sponsor. I'm searching for the delegate or the senator that sponsored it. So I'm going to click the arrow by delegate, excuse me, and come up with, click Butler, and then submit. And this will show you that Delegate Butler sponsored 81 bills. And here's the list. So let's just pick the first one, HB 2002. So you can just click on that one, and that'll take you to House Bill 2002. Shows you the sponsors, the lead sponsor, and then the co-sponsors. And again, if you want to look at the text of the bill, click HTML there, and that takes you to the bill. Now, this bill is a good example to show you, typically when you are writing a bill, you're affecting code that is already in the West Virginia code. And it kind of explains up top what it is. But when you look at this, any language that has the underlines under it is language that is being changed or being added to existing code. And then if you ever see language that has a mark through the middle of it, which I don't know if this bill is going to have that, that means that something has been deleted, proposed to be deleted from the code. And then any language that is neither underlined or stricken through, has a line through it, that means that that's language that remains. So this bill is all new language, as you can see. So here I'm trying to find a bill that not only has the underlying language, which as I explained is new language, but also some stricken language. So again, I'm looking up legislation that I co-sponsored. So Butler, submit, comes up with 81 bills that I co-sponsored. Here's one, 2629, ending West Virginia toll roads, basically. Click on that. That takes you to the bill, House Bill 2629. As you see, I'm a co-sponsor. We're going to click HTML under bill text to read the bill. Shows you what code it affects. Here is some stricken language. This is language that has been taken out. That's the proposal within this bill. If this bill passes, that language would be removed. The rest of this would stay in code. And then here's the new language, is what is underlined. So that's how you find the bills and read, understand a little bit about what they're proposing to do. Remember, none of these bills are law until they pass both the House of Delegates, the Senate, and are either signed by the governor or not signed and allowed to become law without his signature. So I'm going to take you through another bill search because this is kind of tricky. Let's say that you're looking at legislation that was proposed several years ago, a year or 2 or 3 years ago. How do you find that? Say you're looking at some campaign literature where some candidate says this candidate did this or that. So we'll look at another bill that I just happen to remember the number of. It's Senate Bill 409. That was a tax reform bill. So we're going to try this word search again. We'll type in tax reform and click search. And nothing. So again, for whatever reason, the word search function is not working here. So since I know the number though, I'll type in 409. But again, very important, you have to have the number correct and the session correct. So let's just leave it at 2020 and I'll click submit and see what we find there. Senate Bill 409 for the 2020 session is occupational therapy rule relating to fees. So this is a good point. So Senate Bill 409 for the 2020 session is this occupational therapy rule. But Senate Bill 409, we'll type 409 in again, and we'll change it to the correct year that I'm looking for the tax reform, 2017, regular session. Hit submit up here. You got to hit submit here. And then I'm going to type this in here again, 409. So as you see, we're looking at year 2017, the bill number, hit submit. And here you get Senate Bill 409 from the year 2017. You see who the lead sponsor was. No co-sponsors in this case, the code that's affected. And if you want to read the bill, you click on the HTML. Here you have introduced version and then committee substitute. Bills change as they work their way through the process. So if you want to see the introduced version, you click HTML. That takes you to the language. Remember, the parts that have the line stricken through would be removed if this bill were signed into law. So all these that are stricken through would be removed. Anything that's underlined is new language if this were approved. And that's how you find the bill. Usually at the end of the bill, it gives you sort of a summary of what the bill does. So that's finding bills for the current year, which was 2020, or looking back, in this case, 2017. Now, the 2021 bills will come out in February when the new legislature starts. So let's say we want to see all of the bills that were sponsored for the 2020 session. Remember, the 2021 bills won't come out until probably February this year, but click all bills and it pops up here. So you can see all the probably 2,000 bills that were introduced in the 2020 session. You can click on any of the numbers on the left-hand side here, and that'll take you to the text of the bill and show you who sponsored it and so forth. What's more important is completed legislation. This tells you what the legislature actually did last year. So click completed legislation. And if it works, all the legislation that actually passed both houses, when it's completed, it means that it passed the House, the Senate, and the governor signed them. There are probably going to be close to 300 bills that we passed last year. So you can look up the language of any of those. This kind of basically tells you what it did, and then tells you when it came into effect. Again, when you click this number to the left, it'll show you who the sponsors were. You can read the language. This chart below that, on anything that has been completed or has gone through a committee, you can get more history of it, when it passed the House of Delegates, when it passed the Senate, and it'll also have a record of roll call votes, amendments, and other details to the bill. So that's how you find completed legislation. Let's do a little bit more in-depth search for bills and how you find out what happened in committees or maybe during amendments on the floor when a bill is passed. So again, I'm going to start us off from the home page. Click Bill Status. That brings you to this page. Now, I'm going to stick with a bill that I've been working with previously, 2519. Now, that's the Campus Self-Defense Act. That bill did not even go to committee in 2020. So I know nothing happened with it then. But let's look back at what happened with it in 2019, because it did pass the House of Delegates in 2019. So in 2019, remember, we have to change the year up here. select 2019, and it was in the regular session. Make sure you hit submit. Okay, then you put your bill number 2519 and submit. Then you scroll up. You can see last action, March 1st of 2019, Campus Self-Defense Act. Here are the sponsors. The bill text, we already looked at how to find that. Okay, so this bill passed the House of Delegates, and you know that because you scroll on up and you can see by date what happened with the bill. Passed the House, roll call 386 on February 27th. Now the other things here that are kind of highlighted in the brown type are amendments, and it tells you amendment adopted, amendment rejected, so you can look at all of those and see how everyone voted on each one of these amendments. So backing up a little bit, filed for introduction and went to the Judiciary Committee. So let's look at the history of this bill. It was filed for introduction January the 18th. It was referred to the Judiciary Committee. It went to the House Judiciary Committee. There was evidently a motion to send it to a second reference to the Finance Committee, which was rejected. And then another motion was made to reject it on first reading, which would have killed the bill on first reading. And this is the roll call. This tells you who voted to kill this bill when it very first came up on the House floor to be considered. Shall the bill be rejected? So all these people, the yeas, said that the bill should be killed at this point. All of the nays said that the bill should continue at this point. This is very important when you get into campaign season and so forth. People will make claims that such and such candidate did this or that, voted for or against something. Again, in this case, shall the bill be rejected? All these people said to reject the bill, which would have killed the bill. All of these people said that they wanted the bill to pass. So let's go back to the history a little bit. So the bill was not rejected, it continued. Then there was another motion to put it on the special calendar, and a motion to suspend the rule and reject all pending amendments. Another motion to limit debate, which just meant we couldn't argue about it too long. And then here are a bunch of other amendments that were proposed. And each one of these you can click and see how each member voted on each amendment. But this doesn't really tell you what the amendment tried to do, does it? So here's how you figure that out. And as you see, with this many amendments and so forth, it's complicated. So we were trying to figure out what the language of the actual amendment was. So here you go to Hanson. Hanson, Piles, and Fleischhauer were the sponsors of the amendment. So you click that, and that takes you to what the amendment actually did. So in order to figure this out, you'd have to go to the bill page and then the section and figure out how this corresponding sentence would go into the bill to determine what it would do. So we looked at the amendments on this bill, a couple of them, and you can see there are several others you could research. So eventually, though, we get through all the amendments, and then you see in the history of the bill, it ultimately passed the House. We'll click there. That will give you the roll call. That tells you who voted to pass the Campus Self-Defense Act and who voted against the Campus Self-Defense Act. So after it passed the House, then what happened to it? It went to the Senate, and it was referred to the Judiciary, then Finance in the Senate. And then shortly after that, it went to the Judiciary. And as I understand it, they didn't even take the bill up in the Senate that year. So the Campus Self-Defense Act passed the House of Delegates in 2019, but it was not taken up in the Senate. So it did not ultimately pass. There's much more that can be found on the legislative webpage and even different ways of finding the same information. But hopefully this will get you started. Let me leave you with something before we wrap it up here. Is remember when you're told about legislation or when you see the titles of legislation that oftentimes the titles are not entirely accurate or descriptive of what the bill does. If it's something you're interested in, read the language, make up your mind for yourself. I hope this helps. Thank you very much. Have a good day.